Boatbuilding News, the podcast. Let's do it. Welcome to Boatbuilding News, the podcast, a series of engaging interviews with key individuals from within the marine industry. I'm excited. This is going to be epic. Luca Rizzotti, president of the Foiling organisation, joined us for this special episode ahead of the 35th anniversary of Metstrade, kicking off next week. Morning, Luca. Welcome to the Boatbuilding News podcast.
Hey, Holly. Thank you for welcoming me.
It's an absolute pleasure, and especially as we were just mentioning off air, how busy it is for both of us. I'm really excited that we found the time.
Well, it's certainly the September and October for us in the marine industry is the peak of the year. Met's coming in November, plenty of organization, but it's fun, so it's okay.
I know, and it's so funny in the fact that we complain about how busy it is, but actually, when you're in the marine industry, we live for it, don't we? We live for this crazy boat show season. We complain all the way through it about how busy we are, but ultimately, we wouldn't change it for the world.
No, exactly. At the end, you travel to nice locations. You go to Cannes, to Geneva, to Miami.
Yeah.
So I mean, there cannot be any complaint on that. And we're always by the sea, so
yes, that's
always
so
good.
True.
Always good.
So true. So, I think we forget how lucky we are, don't we, sometimes?
We do. I mean, and especially, I would say, even more lucky in the recent years, considering how successful is the marine industry as a whole. After, let's say, the COVID years, it's going super well. People want to get out and be on the outside. So many people decided to go on the outside in the water, and that certainly is helping the whole industry.
100%. So, Luca, let's start with you. Give yourself an introduction. Tell us who you are, what it is you do, and how you fit into this industry.
Let's say everything started for me in the industry by founding Foiling Week. Foiling Week is a racing event dedicated to foiling boats that was started in 2013, 2014. So this year we did the 10-year anniversary. And it's, let's say, an event, of course, as the name says, dedicated to everything that goes foiling. With the time, that went from going racing on sailing boats to basically welcoming not only sailboats, but also motorboats, toys, everything that foils, because the industry just developed 360 degrees. We did some events overseas, like twice in the US, in Miami and in Newport. We have done 2 events in Sydney. Then COVID came and we stopped, but we are restarting, and next year we are going back, for example, to the US in Pensacola, where the American Magic, which is one of the America's Cup teams, have a base, for example. Foiling Week has become then a World Sailing Special event, which is this category by World Sailing, where, let's say, 8 of the most relevant events sit. You have like the America's Cup, CGP, the Ocean Race, World Match Race Tour, Star Sailor League. Anyway, not to mention all of them, but we are in this, let's say, special category that means that we gained, let's say, some traction in the sailing world for sure. And then from there we started developing initiatives that basically now formed, I would say, a whole ecosystem of that is around foiling. So we came up with the Foiling Awards, which is this annual prize for, let's say, best performances in a number of categories in the foiling world, that we give to, of course, people and initiatives in the industry. It could be the best team, the best project, the best motorboat, the best commercial foiling project, and so on. We have, for example, the Foiling Film Festival, which is a series of, let's say, of course, short movies or even longer ones dedicated to foiling, and we showcase them once a year. We have the Summer Challenge, which is this challenge dedicated to universities to design, build, and race a sustainable foiling boat. And last but not least, we put together the Foiling Organization, which is the Industry and Professional Association of Everything Foiling. And we made it, let's say, a little wider than the usual industry association, meaning that it's not only dedicated, the stakeholders are not only the manufacturers, like of boat components and accessories, but we include the designers, the engineers, and even the professional sport teams. The reason behind this is that in foiling, the majority of, let's say, of the technology and the IP is a trickle down from the sport. You see that easily in companies like BAR Technologies or Artemis. Mm-hmm. They are former America's Cup teams that have now dedicated their time and resources to develop foiling commercially.
Yeah, and so, I mean, who knew the foiling world was so big, you know? And actually, I mean, I've been in the marine industry 10 years, and it was only since I started having conversations with yourself and with Neil, who is organising METS, that I actually really thought, well, come on, like, have a look into the foiling world. I don't think I ever had. And when I did, I realised how vast it is, how much it's involved in every part of the industry. It's fascinating. It's so clever. But I mean, if you can, you know, for those that aren't aware, you know, go back to basics. You know, I'd love to hear actually, you know, almost as simple as what is foiling and what is the benefits of it? Why does it exist in our industry?
Well, foiling is in reality a very old concept. It was discovered in England actually by an engineer that was testing wings underwater. He was an aeronautical pioneer. We are talking 1861, and he basically put wings under a boat, towing it on a canal, and to his surprise, the boat lifted. So that was like the discovery moment. Like, oh, what's happening here?
What's happening?
Then, like 40, 50 years later, an Italian, Enrico Forlanini, was the first to basically manage to make this boat fly self-propelled with an engine. Was, I think, 1907, like a couple of years after the Wright brothers managed to fly an airplane.
So right back
in the United States. So the let's say the invention is old. We have seen hydrofoil boats, especially powered ones, in the 60s and the 70s doing transport of people, especially in the Med in Greece, in Italy. What it is basically really a lifting surface. Basically, it's a wing under a boat that, when the speed is enough, gives lift. So that the boat hull gets out of the water, and by getting out of the water, you reduce 80% of the drag. And this gives efficiency. So basically, you can go faster with the same engine, or you can consume less with the same engine, or a combination of the two. This is what foiling is about. And then it's just developed in the recent years, I would say, especially in the last 20, 30, with the coming of composites and then of more sophisticated, let's say, computational power to design wings. That had made it far more accessible, and that's why in the last 10, 15 years we have seen almost a revolution.
Well, yeah, I mean, I had no idea that it dated back that far. You know, it's in my head, I thought it was something that was the last 10, 15 years. I had no idea.
No, it's quite an old system. It's simply that the materials were not there. Everything was metal based, and because foiling benefits from being very light. It took a lot of time to get to that level of composites to allow boats to be significantly light, because especially at the beginning, composites were super expensive, and now they are, I would say, almost mainstream, and it's possible to really build boats out of them.
Yeah. So for you personally, what is it that inspired you to become so passionate about foiling? You know, at what point, did you grow up, in that environment, or was it, a conscious career decision you made? What sparked your passion for it?
I would say trying it. That's what sparked my impression. I was at the time. We are talking 2005. I was living in Sydney for work, and I was sailing 18 footers, which are these skiff boats, typical of Australia. Fast boats. They are small dinghies, and the skipper I was sailing with decided to modify an old boat and add foils. And so that was my very first try. 2005 was, relatively speaking, very early on for the new revolution of foiling. So I was, I guess, one of the first to really see it in the recent years and to try. And then I bought a Mott, which is the boat. Basically, it's a small dinghy, 11 feet long, that brought foiling to mass production.
Oh, really?
In those years, like 2006 and 2007, and basically showed the world of sailing that it was possible to go faster around the course using foiling rather than anything else. And so that I simply got hooked with something that was very much fun on one side, but also where technology and let's say a passion for finding solutions and developing was paramount in this type of designs and foiling.
So actually, what strikes me as something that I'd perhaps maybe conceived about foiling is that I thought it was kind of for performance and in the sporting world and everything about going faster. But absolutely, what you've made me suddenly realize, and almost like a light bulb moment when we spoke about, BAR technologies and Artemis, is actually that there is, there's a whole commercial world for foiling as well that I'd not really considered. The benefits to fuel consumption and that kind of thing as well, are huge, aren't they?
They are huge, and I think what is particularly relevant, for example, when we consider like the America's Cup, where it is now, and even say GP and other racing events where foil technology is applied. Normally, in the past, we have seen a trickle down of the technology coming from, let's say, the America's Cup to the rest of the sailing world. The America's Cup was the first, for example, to implement aluminum spars, aero rigs, and a number of other technologies that slowly got into sailing. But what foiling is doing in the America's Cup is not just getting into sailing, it's getting in the whole marine world. So even in motors, in everything that is efficiency, that's also another big change that foiling is bringing. That's why it is interesting for the whole marine industry. We are going into a world of scarcity of, let's say, energy fuels.
Yeah.
Okay. And of course, there is a huge pressure to go into greener fuel, greener applications, more sustainable, more efficient.
Yeah.
A bad foiling project cuts 50% of your emissions off at the same speed.
Yeah.
So that's a natural choice that I think the motorized marine world will embrace soon. We already seen some of the, let's say, big manufacturers. Take Blue Game, which is part of San Lorenzo. They have announced that they're going to have a foiling catamaran in the production series. So it's coming. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah.
And what is interesting about foiling is while electric and foiling are probably the best combination, because electric has torque, which is what foiling needs just to get out of the water quickly, and then you can increase range after that. The reality is that foiling is good regardless of the fuel you're using. So if we can save 50% of fuel, even with a very bad fuel, it's saving fuel.
Yeah.
So it is certainly a system that can be applied beyond electric. Electrification is not going to happen tomorrow in every boat. And on the other side, foiling can be applied also to very large vessels, to ships, basically. We are not talking certainly about container carriers, but there are currently projects in different phases, including, even in construction phases, for ships up to 70, 80 meters that can take people or load.
Oh, wow.
And these are foiling or semi-foiling, and their efficiency is clear.
And actually, do you know what's actually brilliant about that is you're right in the fact that we always think that the drive for sustainability and the journey that kind of we are all on is for a more sustainable future, driven by, like you said, the scarcity of certain fuels and the need to be greener. A lot of people, myself included, just always just sort of pocket that in the electrification. But there are other elements, like you say, electrification of the marine industry will not happen tomorrow, and it won't necessarily be all encompassing. So actually, there are elements of foiling that can be applied, in the meantime.
Yes, exactly. That's the point, Holly. There's it's a sort of fast track for boat manufacturers to get this efficiency out of their boats. Not to mention that there are other advantages, like when you go foiling, you have less noise because the hull is not hitting the water all the time, and especially you have more comfort because you are gliding above the surface. It certainly has limitations. Foiling cannot happen in a big sea state, even though that's relative and it's changing all the time. We have foil racing boats that go around the world, as in circumnavigation, and of course they encounter big waves, and there's a limit in there. But the majority of the time where we use pleasure crafts is within totally acceptable limits for foiling. Normally we don't go out in anything more than half a meter or 1 meter waves when we go with our pleasure crafts. And even in commercial crafts, we have seen for example, Artemis Technologies have developed a crew vessel transfer boats that they use from Belfast to the North Sea, so not exactly the calmest sea out there.
No.
And it has proved both efficient in terms of fuel consumption, but also in terms of the crew transfer comfort. The people that get to the oil rigs and to the wind farms that are up there, they take now much less time to recover from the trip, simply because the seasickness is much less due to foiling.
Wow, I'd never thought about it like that as well. There's so many elements to this.
Yeah, it is incredible once you start looking into all the effects. Another, again, it comes back to the Artemis one. Because they don't create wake, they were allowed to go quicker in and out the harbor where they do the transfer of the crews, and that is an efficiency work-wise because they can transfer more people by going in and out faster, considering it's a long harbor when you need to get through into the Belfast one.
It's fascinating, but the fascinating part of this is I can't believe I'd not looked into this in more detail before. So it's almost an awareness of it. I don't think I was aware enough of it to really pay too much attention at a detail level.
Well, I would say it's because it's been really a niche so far, and it's now, I would say, in the last 1 year or two that it's really getting out of racing, and it's becoming accessible to the rest of the industry in let's say, an easy to tap into manner. But the effects and the trickle down will be seen in everywhere. Like we see from our perspective, we see foiling getting into any single niche of the marine industry. There's prototypes that have been tried you see even electric foil boards.
Yes, I have
It's
seen those.
something
They
that
look
just
fantastic.
came in the last, I would say, 3-4 years. At the beginning, there were a number of players. Now there's like 50.
Yeah.
And every super yacht has an electric foil board as a toy, as you see,
It's
like
just
mobile.
standard, isn't it? Yeah.
So it's getting everywhere.
I absolutely love it. Well, not as much as you, but I mean, it's absolutely fascinating. So we're heading, like we spoke at the beginning, we're heading towards METS in November. And this year, METS has a foiling pavilion. So tell me about the plans there.
Well, the Foil Technology Pavilion has exactly this purpose, which is to showcase to the rest of the marine industry what the foiling technology companies have been developing so that they can embrace it and start using it into more mass production.
Yes.
What we've seen in the past is that many companies are looking into foiling as a possibility. They are like at the window trying to understand the complexity of it.
Yeah.
What we wanted to do is to bring this complexity to simplicity and say, these are all the parts that you need. These are all the consultants you need to talk to. They're not too many. At the end of the day, you need to look into what materials are you picking to develop your foils, whether it's composites or metals. The flight control system that allow the stability of the vessel, the mechatronic, which is the system connecting, let's say, the flight control to the foils themselves by basically putting together electronics, hydraulics, and the softwares. And then basically that's it. You need of course, you need the CFD engineers, you need the structural engineers, and there's things revolving around this, but this is what you need. And the idea was to show them all at once, so that any company that was interested in saying, okay, let's develop a foiling boat, could see all the parts in there, feel confident that it was doable.
Yeah, and showcase it to the world and say this can apply to you. Don't be concerned about things you don't understand, because hey, we're here as a small pocket of the industry, but we want to infiltrate the rest of it. And it's amazing, isn't it? Because sometimes with new technology like this, the barrier to getting it mainstream is awareness and education, which is exactly what this pavilion's going to do.
Yes, exactly. And it's not something that will happen in 1 year time. It will take time for foiling to get everywhere. Again, even the production capacity needs to be scaled up for everything that goes from the electronics to the composites and these kind of things. But the need from the industry and the will to buy from let's say the consumer is growing. So for sure there will be solutions. At the beginning, like foiling so far has been really prototype and experiments with a few exceptions, like take Candela, which is sort of getting into almost mass production with hundreds of boats per year. But the capacity is out there, and there's many more manufacturers that can get into this with different level of boats. It can be smaller, bigger, it can be super yachts, it can be sailing boats, like race cruisers. There's many elements that can be tried with foiling, and not necessarily they need to be full foiling. Take a super yacht like the Baltic one that was recently launched, Raven, which is 111 foot. That's certainly not mass production by all means, but it's an example of applying, let's say, foiling surfaces to a super yacht. The Raven is not going to go full foiling, but by using, let's say, skimming, they already gained I would say 20% performance over not having this kind of elements, plus the comfort, of course, which again is not a small topic when you're talking about a pleasure craft.
Yeah, exactly that. But this must feel like a bit of a breakthrough era for you. You know, for someone that's been sort of championing the foiling industry for so long, you know, and now we're at the point where the industry's listening and you're being given a platform. Like this is your breakthrough era. Do you know what I mean?
Well, it's I would say this is it's a breakthrough for for foiling in general. Yes,
Yeah.
certainly for me it is an important point
Yeah.
of my work and career. But I would give credit to everyone that is been working into this industry and making it accessible to the rest of the world by developing IPs and technologies that can be shared. Because so far everything has been a little more secretive because it was connected to racing and to the cup and so on. But they made it available. They have seen, of course, also the commercial opportunity of making it available. But it's certainly, I think we are at an important point. I think my real hope is that in a few years we are not going to need a foil technology pavilion anymore. Like electric cars at the beginning, they had electric car shows. Now every car show is electric as well. There is no car brand that doesn't have an electric car in the list of the options that they supply. So our hope is kind of not to be needed.
Yeah, so your hope is kind of to be mainstream and just an obvious choice for people and not an outside choice.
Exactly. Be one of the normal choices. And then when we reach that point, we will have really reached success.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. So what's your biggest challenge at the moment?
The challenge is really in uniting the industry and making it work as a whole in terms of foiling and in terms of foiling industry and foiling industry with the rest of the marine world. Which is the purpose of the foiling organization. We need a sort of, let's say, harmonization of data and rules and the way we see things. So it's simply a matter of also discussing with, let's say, the regulators. What kind of applications can we tap into? What are the limits of this use? Is there any stability rule that we need to implement for foiling boats? Because once foiling becomes mainstream, then of course rules will be applied, and we need to work together with the rest of the industry to develop these rules so that it is let's say all in the best interest of the marine development, and it's not slowed down by bureaucracy.
Yeah, exactly that. I think there's an element of making sure that everyone's contained enough and moving in the same direction that allows growth, but in a safe kind of contained way that's regulated, but isn't stifling.
Yes, that's exactly the trick. When you work in a technology that is developing fast, but at the same time you can see that you haven't reached the peak. By all means, we are still at the beginning of what foiling can achieve. We need to find the right pace in all of the segments so that we go as fast as we can. But on the other side, that the market receive these new technologies in a way that makes sense. Because sometimes you sort of go too fast for what the market can digest. And so it is important that also I think in the development of new boats and products, so far it's been really people came up with ideas and thinking we should do this boat and they just did it sort of for the sake of it, to prove that it was possible and to make a dream real. But now that foiling is getting into mainstream, the new boats will need to be market driven, as in because the niches are becoming more clear. Like, what is needed? Do we need a 10 to 12 meter, let's say, water taxi. How many people do we need? What is the range? What is the cost? What is the price point? How many boats can we build? It needs to be, let's say, far more of a process compared to being just a dream being built. That's what I think is the next part.
Luca, you strike me as quite a resilient individual. You've been working in an industry that's had limited awareness, or almost, you could almost say probably limited appreciation as well. And you've kept going and kept developing the industry, speaking your message, that takes quite a bit of resilience.
I would say it takes passion.
Yeah, that's true.
If you're driven by passion and you believe in what is good about something, then it's just a matter of going forward. And then, of course, it doesn't mean that everyone that has a dream is successful, or that the dream is good per se. But I think foiling has proven, especially because it's been around, as we have seen from quite some time, it has proven that it's the right time now to be embraced by the rest of the marine industry, for sure.
I'm excited. And, I'm going to, from a personal level, I can't wait to continue my kind of learning journey with foiling. It will be one of the highlights for me at Mets this year. I will be spending a fair bit of time at the Foiling Pavilion, talking to people, learning even more about it, because I'm almost kicking myself that I didn't know enough about it before we started talking.
Well, we have also developed a number of conferences at the Foil Technology Pavilion. We're going to have a dedicated theater there. And the purpose of this conference is exactly that, to not only have the exhibitors showcasing with, let's say, with a stand what they do, but to have them talking with the rest of the marine industry and talking with their, let's say, on one side could be competitors or clients on the stage, so that it is easier for people to understand each part and where they are going. So education certainly is still a big part of the journey.
I can't wait. I'm really excited.
Thanks, Ollie. Yeah, look forward to see you there for sure.
Yeah, 100%. So, it's been awesome to talk about foiling. I've learned a lot. I'm sure that everyone that's listening will have learned something. Even if they thought they knew everything about foiling, there will be an element of it, I think, that they'll take from this episode where it will just spark a thought process in them where they'll be like, I didn't think about it like that. So thank you so much, Luca. I'm going to finish the podcast on the same question we ask every single guest. And I'm really excited to hear your answer to this. What one quote do you live by, Luca? What one quote do you hear every day that you think, I'm really motivated by that?
Well, it's if I have to think about it, it's kind of it's talking about the resilient and the going forward. There's it's a funny one. There's a famous phrase from an American admiral.
Okay.
That was, I think, I'm not sure if it was, I don't think it was the Civil War, it was before that. Anyway, he was entering with his ship in a bay full of, they called them torpedoes back then. Basically, these balls where if you touch them, your ship would explode potentially. And he said, damn all the torpedoes, full steam ahead. Which is what, at the end, what I live by. It's doesn't matter what are the issues and the problems are. We just go full speed, and we know that we're gonna get there. And he did too.
Oh my goodness, I love it. And I absolutely love that. It doesn't matter how many episodes. I mean, we've got over 30 episodes of this podcast now, and not one person ever gives me a quote that another guest has said. You guys all live by such amazing kind of mantras. I love it. So thank you so much for sharing it with us.
Most welcome, Ollie, and thank you for having me in your podcast.
No worries at all. I look forward to seeing you in November.
Very good. See you soon, Ollie. Ciao.
Thanks, Luca. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
I really hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you have, then it would be awesome if you could leave a rating or a review. Don't forget to subscribe so you can listen to us again. See you soon.